Allentown Victory, got a special message for you right now. I want to help you understand that we're moving into something new for all of us. We are now entering into a new age and a new dawn for Allentown Victory, and we believe for much more than just Allentown Victory, but we hope the Lehigh Valley and beyond. We're now moving from what we would call a church, or going to a church building, and doing micro churches now, or house churches in multiple locations. And so we say this to say that if you're out there right now, and this is something that's been on your heart, you've been wondering or wanting to start something in your home or to do a house church or micro church, I would encourage you, feel free to contact us. We're looking to help out those that want to be doing it in the Lehigh Valley, those that want to be doing it beyond as well. We're not looking at being controlling or dictating this and that. We want to be someone to help serve you to do what God's called you to be doing. This is now the mantle that's on our house, on our church, on our groups of churches, and this is what we're now looking to be doing now in the valley and here. So we can help support you. As the Lord leads you, we also believe we're being led to help you follow Him in the direction God has called you to be doing. And so this is now what we are doing. We are excited about it. We're moving forward with it. We hope to do some larger services together and come together every few months so we can meet together as things begin calming down with COVID and more. But we hope that you would consider being part of just this, of what we're doing. Again, the Lehigh Valley, maybe something you want to be starting your own thing. If we can help serve you, contact us. That is our joy and our desire. God bless, and we hope to be connecting with you soon. Good morning, Allentown Victory. Welcome back to our series, Hold Fast. Question for you here. What do you do when you have failed and it has hurt other people around you? Let's talk about that.
So, what are you doing?
Running late for curfew? What are you doing?
I'm making a late night sandwich like your grandma doesn't like me to.
Your secret's safe with me.
Same. So how was your party?
Lame. I don't get what's so special about New Year's.
Oh, what's special about New Year's?
Yeah, I mean, you stay up late, everyone says, Happy New Year, and then a ball drops.
Let me tell you something. I remember a year, you were just born. It was a very difficult year. You may not believe this, but there was no toilet paper to be found anywhere.
Gross.
That wasn't even the half of it. People couldn't shake hands, they couldn't hug. You didn't want to leave your house or you're afraid you might get sick. And masks. Everyone was wearing masks everywhere. You couldn't tell if somebody was smiling or frowning.
That sounds weird.
You couldn't go visit with family. Not even at the holidays. Yeah.
Then what happened?
Well, that's the best part. Then God got us through it. Just like he always does. That's why I like new. See, God says, behold, I'm doing a new thing. New, my dear, gives us a different perspective on things.
Like on toilet paper, I guess. I mean, just because it's new doesn't mean it's gonna be good.
You're right. You're right. That is why we hold on to the words of Jesus, who said, in this world you will have troubles, but be of good cheer. I've overcome the world. That, boop, is why we celebrate new.
Hey, Grandpa. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Do you want ham or turkey?
Welcome back, Allentown Victory. Today we're continuing our series and doing the very last of our series called Hold Fast. And we're jumping right back into the book of Daniel here, and we're going to be looking at one of the stories that is very famous that almost all of us have heard about if we grew up in the church or been in the church for some time, and that's with Daniel and the lion's den. However, we're going to look at it from a completely different angle, from a different thought process than probably what you have heard about or thought about before. So, again, there are a lot of things that we've looked at with Daniel. We've looked at, all the way from chapter 1. Now we're jumping over to Daniel chapter 6. And now Daniel has moved and been through a couple of different empires, and now he's on his third emperor, King Darius. And he's a bit of an older man now. He's risen up and gone up and down. But now we're looking here at King Darius. And King Darius here has appointed Daniel and appointed many satraps and governors, approximately 120. In fact, let's look at it in Daniel chapter 6, verse 1 through 4. It says, it pleased Darius, this is the new emperor of from the Medes and Persians who come in and took over the Babylonian Empire, right? It says, it pleased Darius to set over the kingdom 120 satraps to be over the whole kingdom. And over these 3 governors, of whom Daniel was one of them, all right, that the satraps might be given account to them, so that the king would suffer no loss. Then this Daniel distinguished himself above the governors and satraps because an excellent spirit was in him. And the king gave thought to setting him over the whole realm. So the governors and satraps sought to find some charge against Daniel concerning the kingdom, but they could find no charge or fault because he was faithful, nor was there any error or fault found in him. So here you have a guy who just again rose to the top. Daniel once again has an excellent spirit. Man, church, that's one thing we need to grab a hold of. Let's get an excellent spirit. Let's do things with excellence, not because it's our job, but because it's part of who we are. We're allowing God to influence us and change us and become more like Him. God is an excellent God. Let's be like our Father. Let us be excellent in what we do, because that is something that rises to the top, and it may be forgotten like a time, like we looked at last week, but eventually God brings it to the top when it will glorify Him and His kingdom. And here we have Daniel once again rising to the creme of the creme here, rising up to the top. And King Darius favored Daniel so much. Daniel, literally, he was going to set him over everything. Reminds me so much of Joseph and other stories in the Bible where someone who was a slave literally comes right to the top. It's beautiful to see how God just redeemed this man over and over and over again and brought him from nothing to something to almost everything in that kingdom. And so here we have Darius, though, and this is the eyes that I want us to look at this week, is through the eyes of King Darius. You have this king here who, man, has taken over almost everything, ruling over a huge kingdom, has people that he trusts, man. He has delegated out in such a wise way, and now he has someone that he trusts more than anybody, Daniel, who does it with excellence. And what he wants to do, see, any good leader will do this. If you have someone doing something very well, you want him to be a model. You want other people to see what he's doing, and you want them to realize, hey, this is what I promote. This is what I want us to be about. What this guy is doing is what I want everyone else to look at and also do as well. And so when you're a leader of something, you want to promote those that are doing things well. Those that when others can look at it, realize, oh, that's what I need to be doing. That's what's being celebrated. That's what's right. And so that's in King Darius' mindset here, that here is a man with an excellent spirit. He does things well. I want eyes to be on him. I want people to see him. You know, perhaps you've been in a company or season where you were the golden child or golden boy or golden girl, so to speak. I've had that happen in me in several seasons where, you know, you're the golden boy and everyone's looking at you and you're just favored above everything else. And so that happens sometimes for seasons. But here's what happens when you're that person, okay? What happens is that all eyes are on you, but then a target comes on you as well. A target comes and there's jealousy that arises that try to take you down or have other people try to rise above you. And this is what can happen in any situation. And now the king was innocent with this. He wasn't trying to hurt Daniel, but literally making him that model person, put not only eyes on him, but put a target on his back as well. And so now you have these other governors and satraps that are literally jealous of Daniel. They want to figure out how to take him down, and they're frustrated because there's nothing they can do. He's blameless. I mean, that's the part of being excellent spirit. There was nothing they could pin on Daniel. Church, can we be like that? Can we be like that where there's nothing that can be pinned on you? Nothing. Everything they try to look for, there's just nothing there. And it's not because we're good at hiding stuff. It's because there's really nothing there for someone to say something about. Church, that is excellence, and that's something we want to have in our life. That's integrity, and we want that in our life too. So we see Daniel here, and he, again, lived that life where no one could pin anything on him. It just fell off. So they devised another plan. It reminds me so much of Balaam and the story of Balaam, where this king asked Balaam to curse the children of Israel. And literally Balaam's like, hey, there's nothing I can curse them. They haven't done anything wrong. There's no sin that they've done. And so literally, after so much time, Balaam stupidly gives the king an antidote to this and says, look, if you want the children of Israel to be cursed, here's what you do. You got to get them to sin. And here's how you get them to sin. And that's what happened. And here you have something very similar where it's not necessarily that they got Daniel to sin, but they got the king to make a new decree that what Daniel would do now would be sin. So what they did is they came before the king and said, and let's jump there, because in Daniel chapter 6, verse 6 through 9 we're going to go to. It says, so these governors and satraps thronged before the king and said thus to him, King Darius, live forever. So once again, you have Daniel left to the side, and all these other kings start coming. I mean, all these other satraps and governors come to the king, and they say they're thronging him. It's like a celebrity that's coming on. The paparazzi come and they're all, and they're saying the person's name. They come and they're thronging the king and they're literally flattering him. They say, oh, King Darius, live forever. It's like they're just worshiping the king this moment. They're literally puffing him up. They're literally setting a trap for the king. This is what they're doing. They're puffing him up. They're flattering him so they can entrap him to say something and do something. And King Darius is not aware of this. And this is something that we all need to be aware of in our life, because flattery can happen from any which corner. Now, I'm sure that all of us have experienced flattery at some point in time where someone tried to flatter you. In fact, when it comes to couples, a lot of times we joke around like that if someone in the couple is coming to the other person, flattering them, the other person goes, what is it that you want? Why are you doing this? What is it that you need? What are you looking for? And it's kind of an ongoing joke between couples, right? And so whenever you hear about flattery, you're wondering what's going on. But Darius, as the emperor, and what happens in certain positions where all of a sudden he was elevated, he got a little bit too elevated with all the flattery that was coming his way. And so it's something to be very careful of. And if you look in the Bible, you're going to see that flattery was a tool that the enemy used quite a bit. I mean, you look at, in so many ways it was used, but you look at Absalom. Absalom flattered the people, and he got people to favor him. All right, Esther used it in a positive way in one sense, where she flattered the king and made a feast for the king because she was about to ask him a big request, right? And that was to save the Jewish people. You have here's a weird one, right? The Apostle Paul, when he was traveling around in Acts chapter 16, verse 16 to 18, you have this fortune teller girl that's in this city, and she begins going around talking to Paul and his companions, saying, these are men of God, and they're coming to tell you the way of salvation. Now, was that true? Absolutely. sounds like a great hype person, right? A great hype man. Here comes someone and, oh yeah, they're hyping up what we're doing. That's wonderful. But it was a demon talking through this girl. And so again, here was flattery, but it wasn't flattering. It was coming from the wrong source, the wrong motivation. And Paul literally turned around, cast the demon out, and the demon left her. And now the people that were over this girl, that was the fortune teller, got mad because now they lost money. Now she can no longer tell fortunes through demonic ways. Let me pause there for a second. All right, because we've talked in this series about the wise men who were astrologers, who looked into the stars, looked at zodiac, sorcerers, magicians. Can I just tell you something real quick? Stop looking at your stupid zodiac sign, okay? Stop looking at the palm of your hands to try to read what your future is. Stop going to a psychic to look for your future events. That stuff is witchcraft. That stuff has demonic influence. If there is anyone out there that does it with some relativity of truth where you are in awe of them, can I tell you, that's demonic powers, because demons can do that, all right? Demons can try to set a course for you. Now, God has a course for you, and so does the devil. God knows the course he has set for you, and the devil has the traps set for you. So the devil can tell you about the traps he has set for you. Let me say that again. The devil can tell you about the traps he has set for you. Did you hear that? Okay? So let me tell you a trap right now. Let me tell you one that sounds good, right? Oh, you're going to meet the man of your dreams. You're going to meet the girl of your dreams here. Someone that you've been looking for is right around the corner. Someone good is coming in your corner here. The right job promotion. Here's the thing. That promotion of that person might be sent by the enemy, might be a trap of the enemy. Think about it. How many of us have fallen into a trap, went to a job where it was just horrible, terrible. We thought it was great and it was terrible. We've gone to a relationship and it was terrible. Think about that for a second, all right? The enemy sets up traps and can make it seem good. No one would fall into a trap if it did not seem good, okay? So let's back up for a second. A lot of these things that might seem good or seem like they actually were fortune telling for us, that can be demonically influenced. All right. And so we need to take a step back and say, God, what are you influencing? Who are you speaking to and through? Because that is where I want to place myself under what you're doing. Don't position yourself in front of demons. Okay, let me say it again. Real simple and real easy, right? Don't position yourself in front of demons. Get away from that nonsense. It's nonsense. Oh, but I like this stuff. When I do the cards, again, demons can tell your future. They can tell you the traps they've set for you that look appealing and might seem right. Wisen up, right? Get away and run away from that and run towards God. So here, all these people lost money because now this woman couldn't tell anything about the future. And again, what she was saying about Paul was right, but it was demonically influenced and it was wrong. And so Paul cast that out. Now, I know we're talking about Darius, but let's jump even to a few other ones, all right? Where, how about Ananias and Sapphira? They literally bowed down before Peter and lied about the money, and they were influenced, but yet they bowed down. They were flattering with their posture, yet out of their lips came lies. That can happen in all of our life. I've seen that many times, right? Where people posture themselves like they're humble, yet it's lies coming out of their lips. And people think that we don't know about it, but we do. And then there's another one here where even Peter himself flattered Jesus. And when Jesus said that he was going to die on the cross, and he was going to die, Peter came to him and said, "No, not you, Lord. You will not die. Surely you will not die." And Peter's thinking that he's just praising and uplifting Jesus. And Jesus comes and looks at him and says, "Get behind me, Satan." All right? Right there, just speaks and casts the devil out right there. All right? Peter, one of his disciples, he does and says, "Man, get behind me." Think about that. That's a powerful thing, isn't it? That's a powerful thing right there. Flattery is being used all the time and all around us. Let it not be one of the weapons in your arsenal. Now, God might tell you, like Esther, hey, do this, say this, come before, because we're going to come bring something. Again, she didn't necessarily flatter the king when she came to the king. She could have lost her head by even approaching the king. But what she did is that she set a table before him. She set up the mood and the proper thing. It's not that she said words all of a sudden just a flattery. She said things to all of a sudden bring, again, a table, a feast before the king, and then did it again as well. And it was for the saving of her people. All right? But again, flattery is a weapon that's used by the enemy. Let's run away from it. Let's run away from the demonic influences that are happened by it. And that's what happened here with Darius. Darius got puffed up. And flattery was used wisely, but in a evil wisdom, a worldly wisdom here to get the king. So it says here that all the governors of the kingdom, the administrators and satraps, the counselors and advisors have consulted together to establish a royal statute and to make a firm decree that whoever petitions any god or man for 30 days except you, O king, shall be cast into the den of lions. Now, O king, establish a decree and sign the writing so that it cannot be changed according to the law of the Medes and Persians, which does not alter. Therefore, King Darius signed the written decree. Now, this sounds innocent, right? Here all these people are worshiping King Darius, and King Darius thinking, oh, this is great, right? Oh, you want us to sign a decree that no other gods can be worshipped for 30 days? Yeah, what's 30 days? That sounds good, right? They should all be worshiping me anyway. I'm the king here. I'm the ruler. That's right. Let me sign. That's an easy one. No big deal. That will appease my fans, my followers, my people that are in charge. And yeah, let's do that, right? And he just signs that off, again, with no thought to Daniel, even though Daniel's one of his top guys. When we talk about being that forgotten thing. But King Darius here all of a sudden, again, was entrapped and wrote something. Now, these guys knew. These guys knew when they trapped him. They knew that this law cannot be turned around. In the Medes and Persian law, when the king decrees something, it's set in stone. It cannot be changed. And they knew that. So what they did is that even though they could not find sin in Daniel, they made a new rule that they knew Daniel could not follow. All right? And that's what took place here. So Daniel chapter 6, verse 11. It says here, then these men assembled and found Daniel praying and making supplication before his God. That's what Daniel did. Daniel prayed 3 times a day. Church, if you want to be someone that is connected with God, you should be praying at least 3 times a day. Morning, afternoon, and night, he'd be praying and seeking God. He was connected to God. You wonder why he had an excellent spirit? He was connected to the one who is excellent. He's connected to the one that created him and made the human being, made the human race, put us together with his words and with his hands. He was connected to the Creator. And if we want to have an excellent spirit, we need to connect to the Creator. But here you have the king, all of a sudden, made this decree, and now they go straight for Daniel. The same day, they go, this was just a complete trap. Verse 12, and they went before the king and spoke concerning the king's decree. I jumped a little bit right there. Verse 12. And they went before the king and spoke concerning the king's decree. Have you not signed the decree that every man who petitions any god or man within 30 days except you, O king, shall be cast into the den of lions? And the king answered, this thing is true, according to the law of the Medes and Persians, which does not alter. So here, they're so smart in what they've done. They're wise. They're governors and satraps for a reason, all right? These are leaders for a reason. They have some wits about them. And they make the king, they say, hey, didn't you just make this rule? And isn't this what this rule says? This is like literally pretty much the same day. Okay? And then we jump to verse 13. So they answered and said before the king, hey, that Daniel, who was one of the captives from Judah. They didn't say one of the top guys in the kingdom. They all of a sudden brought him back down to being a captive of Judah. He says, he does not show due regard for you, O king, for the decree that you have signed, but makes his petition 3 times a day. And the king, when he heard these words, was greatly displeased with himself, and set his heart on Daniel to deliver him, and he labored till the going down of the sun to deliver him. What happens when you fail? What happens when you screw up? What happens when you do something and you fell into a trap and you've tripped up not just yourself, but now you've hurt people that you care about, that you love, that you intended good for? And that's what happened here with Daniel. With the King Darius. He was displeased with himself. He was so hurt. He realized that he's the one that messed up. He didn't blame the governors and satraps in that moment. He looked at his own stupidity and realized, oh my gosh, what did I do? And this shows you the king's heart. Again, it was prideful, but there was also some humility there where he looked, and it says that he set his heart on Daniel to deliver him. He was trying to figure out, what can I do to deliver this guy? And then he says he labored till the going down of the sun. That means that same day, he was laboring all day, trying to look into the laws, trying to figure out, what can I do to get this guy out of this situation? He tried to figure it out. And the king was so upset with himself. And I think you go back in the Bible, and you see people that were displeased with their own failings as well. Peter was displeased with his own failings. Think about when the rooster crowed 3 times. And Jesus told him, when the rooster crows, you're going to deny me. You're going to realize you denied me 3 times. Not the rooster crowed 3 times. And when the rooster crowed, he realized that he denied Jesus 3 times. And his heart sunk. His heart sunk. He ran away. He was in tears. He realized what he had just done. How about Samson? Samson, when he fell, when he gave over to Delilah and his hair was cut after he revealed to Delilah what his weakness was, that he would lose all his strength if his hair was cut. And he finally let Delilah know. And the next night, all of a sudden, Delilah cuts his hair. Think about the regret, the hurt, and the pain, not just for himself, but for all his people, because he was a champion for his people. Now he let all his people down. How about Judas? That's a weird one to think about, right? Judas was displeased with himself, so much so that he took his own life. And right here you see a very big distinction. And let's look at these two disciples for a second, Peter and Judas. You see one person when they failed Jesus, and you see another person when they failed Jesus. One went and did not hold fast to Christ, but let go of everything and went the other way. And the other one went back to hold fast to Christ. In fact, you look at you look at Peter, and you see someone who, when all of a sudden Jesus rose from the grave and he heard about it, he ran and outran everyone to go to the tomb to see the resurrected Jesus. All right? And then all of a sudden, when he was on the boat, in John chapter 21, they were out fishing and they saw Jesus on shore. He literally jumped out of the boat in his regular undergarments and swam to shore ahead of the boat to go see Jesus. Peter ran to Christ. Peter ran to Jesus. After he betrayed him, he ran away for a little bit, but then he figured out and tried to figure out how to run to Jesus as fast as he could. Church, we need to hold fast in the middle of our failures. Let me say it again. We need to hold fast and don't let go. Let us not be a Judas that runs away and tries to escape the pain. Let us man up. Let us woman up. Let us become the people we need to and grab onto the truth that we know that perhaps we let go of for a time. Let's get back and hold on. Let's hold on to the altars. Let's hold on to Jesus. Let's grab hold of Him. If we've let go of Him in any way, shape, or form, let's look how to grab hold of our Savior once again. Just like Peter did. Peter went after Christ. Peter went after, and even Samson. This is what Samson did as well, didn't he? Samson, at the very end of his life, with his eyes gouged out and his hair cut, as his hair began to grow again, and he said, God, use me one more time, one last time. And he put his hands on the pillars, right? And all of a sudden it was the biggest victory that they had in that time, where because all the Philistines, all the captains, all the army leaders were in that court to make fun of Samson and others there. It was a mockery. And yet he was able to push the pillars down and have one of the greatest victories at the end. God can redeem your failure. So now let's look at Darius' failure, and let's look at how God redeemed that in his life. So here now he has to go through with this. He realizes that he messed up and that he cannot change what happened. And so Daniel chapter 6 verse 16 says, So the king gave the command, and they brought Daniel and cast him into the den of lions. But the king spoke, saying to Daniel, Hey, your God whom you serve continually, He will deliver you. Do you hear that? This is a king who set everyone up to worship him. And he says to Daniel with faith. Do you hear the faith of this? He says, Your God whom you serve continually, He will deliver you. Not, hey, pray that He might deliver you. I'm going to pray too, and this and that. He said, He will. He spoke as he's putting his friend into the lion's den. He's saying, hey, Daniel, He will deliver you. He just filled him and infused him with faith in his own God. It wasn't even his God, it was in Daniel's God. It said, hey, God's going to deliver you. And then all of a sudden you look at what Darius did. Again, this is how Darius began to hold fast. He began to hold fast to the truth that he knew. There was a reason he picked Daniel. There was a reason he made Daniel rise to the top. And he realized and knew that it was the God that this guy served. So we keep going here, verse 19. Then the king arose very early in the morning. Let's go back to verse 17. Then a stone was brought and laid on the mouth of the den, and the king sealed it with his own signet ring and with the signets of his lords. Then the purpose concerning Daniel might not be changed. The purpose might not be changed. Verse 18. Now the king went to his palace and spent the night fasting. No musicians were brought before him, and he was without sleep, and his sleep went from him. So here the king speaks faith and then goes and starts fasting. And he says he had no sleep that night. No sleep whatsoever. And so then we jump down to verse 19. And the king arose very early in the morning and went in haste. Do you hear that? He went literally running. He went running. The king, All right, this emperor who needs not run or do anything, who needs not worry about anything, could have just said, oh, whatever, I don't care. Let's think about that for a second. You know people I know that don't care how they affect other people? Last week we talked about this and I actually asked this question, man, how can we care less about people's thoughts about us? So maybe we should flip that for a second. How can we care a little bit more about other people? How can we care a little more how our actions affect other people and what happens to their life? So you have to be pretty secure in who you are to be ready to love other people properly. And here you have King Darius. He knew who he was. He could have just said, forget it, I don't have time for this. I'm too stressed out. I can't worry about anybody else. No, but instead he focused all his attention on Daniel. He could have said, all right, next person in line. Who's next? No. He knew that he did something wrong and he did what he could do to rectify the situation. Not only did he look to do that, he looked to move towards faith in God in this situation, which I think is awesome. So again, as he went in haste to the den of lions, and when he came to the den, verse 20, he cried out with a lamenting voice. He cried. The king, the emperor of one of the biggest empires in history, cried out. All right, a lamenting voice. Daniel, he said, the king spoke, saying to Daniel, Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God whom you serve continually been able to deliver you from the lions? Now, can I just tell you, think about the faith that took right there. Think about how foolish, first of all, the king has to look. The king has to look like a complete idiot to, first of all, run there. Second, to cry out after this man. And number 3, to talk to him as if he's still alive, knowing that he threw him in the lion's den. That just seems like complete and utter foolishness, but it wasn't, because it was faith. Here you have King Darius displaying faith and coming with hope and expectation, saying, hey, Daniel, did your God deliver you? Are you safe? Are you delivered here? And all of a sudden here, verse 23, then he cried out, and then he was delivered, all right? So we find out that Daniel comes back and says, yep, I'm still here. And verse 23, now the king was exceedingly glad for him and commanded they should take Daniel up out of the den. So Daniel was taken up out of the den. No injury whatsoever was found in him because he believed in his God. All right, and so Daniel was delivered, but the king was exceedingly glad. Again, we're looking through the eyes of Darius here, where he failed. He messed up. He was displeased with himself. But instead of just ignoring the person that he hurt, he went back to figure out, how can I rectify this situation? And not only that, he believed in God. His faith shifted from doubt to all of a sudden to faith in God, with humility coming before God and fasting. And so verse 25 here. Verse 25 is really the key part, because here you have, again, the failure, but now you have the coming up, where King Darius, just like Nebuchadnezzar, all of a sudden makes a proclamation. And he says this, he says, to all peoples, nations, and languages that dwell in all the earth. This sounds like Nebuchadnezzar in verse 4. He's writing this to the whole empire. Peace be multiplied to you. Again, here's a conquering empire declaring peace. 26, I make a decree that in every dominion of my kingdom, men must tremble and fear before the God of Daniel. Man, this stuff just makes me well up, right? When I think about Darius and how humble he was. When he made a decree for everyone to worship him, so to speak, now he's saying, I decree that every man must tremble before the God of Daniel. We keep going. For he is the living God. He is steadfast forever. His kingdom is the one which shall not be destroyed, and his dominion shall endure to the end. Verse 27, he delivers and rescues, and he works signs and wonders in heaven and on earth. Who has delivered Daniel from the power of the lions? So this Daniel prospered in the reign of Darius and in the reign of Cyrus the Persian. And so here again, you have Darius making a proclamation, and Daniel once again helped bring a king and moved him towards faith. God redeemed the situation. And we say again, God redeemed the situation, just like he did with Samson, just like Jesus did with Peter, when he called Peter back and said, Peter, do you love me? He said it 3 times, just the same amount of times that Peter denied Jesus. All of a sudden, Jesus came back, do you love me? Do you love me? Do you love me? And he gave him a different command. If you love me, then do this, feed my sheep, tend my sheep, take care of the little ones, all right? This is what he said to Peter to go do that, and restored him back. And so here we have, again, restoration, where Darius was, again, restored right? He came back, and now his guy, Daniel, is back where he belongs. And now not only does he restore Daniel, now he makes a proclamation to all the land about Daniel's God and that he is the one true God. That is amazing and beautiful. And church, let that be the bookend in our life. That at the end of our life, no matter what our mistakes are, we come back and we hold fast to God and we proclaim to the land, to the people around us, to our world, that our God is the one true God. He has delivered us. He's delivered people that we know that are around us, and He's the one that we serve. So let me ask you to do a few questions here in your micro church right now and talk to your group right now. Number one, describe a time that we were flattered into a trap. Describe a time that maybe you were flattered into a trap and you realized it later on. And have we ever flattered someone else into a trap? Have we ever done that? If you can admit to that and talk about it, share it. What did that look like? What happened? What was the result of it? Was it what you wanted or not? Number two, have you made a decision or choice that affected people adversely? Just like the king made this choice to make this decree. He didn't realize it would affect people adversely or badly, but it did. Have you ever made a choice or decision that affected people poorly? And you didn't realize it, but that's what took place. And then what did that look like and what happened in the situation? Number three, is there a redemptive purpose in our present or past failings? Let me say it again, because I said that poorly, all right? Is there a redemptive purpose in our past or present failings? Okay, and then with that, what truth is there for us to hold fast to? Is there something that we can hold fast to, or are we running and hiding like Judas and other people did, or are we holding fast to God? What's the redemptive purpose in our past or present failings? Number four, what can we learn from King Darius or Daniel? All right, there's a lot in those. Again, we looked at Daniel, we looked at King Darius. But maybe you want to take a look here at Daniel. What can you learn? What can you gather? What are some of the gold nuggets in this story that you can gather from King Darius and Daniel here? So talk about that with your group. Pray for one another. Pray with one another. And I want to encourage you also to be giving online, allentownvictory.com/give, or give in the offering baskets that should be out in front of you now. God bless you guys. Have a wonderful week.